Hello and welcome to this video lesson. I'm going to show you how to create a cool hand-tinted effect so that you can transform your black and white images so they look a little bit like this. It's a great technique and a wonderful way to breathe a new lease of life into old black and white negatives, or even to give an old-fashioned twist to your modern digital files. Okay, so let's get started, and I'm going to return to our original black and white image, which is just scanned. It was a travel image from India taken about 8 years ago on black and white film. So simply scanned, and here's our file, which you can also find on the companion CD. Okay, so let's just collapse this. The first thing we're going to do is get a nice base color, get away from this black and white and add a little sepia tint. So let's go up to Enhance, down to Adjust Color, and then across to Color Variations. And the first thing we're going to do here is just come down to the Adjust Color Intensity slider and move it a little bit to the left so that our actions aren't quite so extreme. To get a sepia effect, we're going to just increase the red by one click and decrease the blue, which is effectively making it a little yellower. And that's giving us a little bit of a sepia tint. And you can see in our before and after windows at the top of the box the effect that we're getting. If you're unhappy, simply reset the image and start again. But we know that increasing red and decreasing blue by one click with the Adjust Color Intensity slider at about this setting is perfect. So let's click OK, and now you can see that we have a nice color to our image. Okay, now we are just going to create a new layer. We can either click this little fellow here or just go up to Layer, New, and Layer. Let's just click OK. And here you can see in our layers palette on the right hand side that we have a new layer. Good practice would say that we should just rename that, but for the time being I'm just going to leave it at layer 1. Now this is a really important step in the process of recreating the hand colored tint, and this is the blending mode. So using this drop down menu, just switch from normal to color, and that's a very critical step in this process. Now we're going to choose a brush from our Tools palette on the left hand side, and we're going to get a good color. So let's just go to Set Foreground Color there, and if we just double click on that, you can see that we get a whole range of colors to choose from here. So let's go for a blue, and let's go for about there. Click OK, and you can see that our foreground color has now been set. And now we can just simply brush in our sky. The opacity, let's just bring that up a little bit, and we just literally just paint in the area here. Don't worry about going over the edges just a little bit, because we are replicating a hand painted effect. So I'm just going to be a little bit rough to start with, and I just want to demonstrate. If I switch the blending mode back to normal, and then you can see how crude and horrible that coloring looks, and there's none of the tones or shapes from the image coming through. Switch back to color, and of course you can see that we have a nice hand tinted effect. If we want to just zoom in so we can get a little bit more accurately, and we can use the square bracket key to just make our brush a little bit smaller, and then we can just start Control Z to undo there, and we can just start being a little bit more accurate with our painting here. Of course this all used to be done by hand with inks, so it was a lot more laborious for workers. Okay, don't worry too much. I'm being a little bit crude here just for the sake of the demonstration. Of course I expect you will take a lot more care, but just for the sake of speed, let's do that. It's Control minus just to zoom out again, and you can see it's looking a little bit messy around, a little bit too messy around some of the edges, but we could clear that up with a layer mask as well. Now the other thing I'm going to do, just to totally recreate the hand tinted effect, is also use the opacity slider. I'm going to crank that down a little bit. In fact, even there, just less than 50%, because actually it's a very subtle process. Okay, so that's the sky, and that's essentially the whole process. Now it's rather a laborious process of just doing all the other colors, and I really suggest that we use a different layer for each color. So let's go up to layer again, create a new layer, and click OK. Let's change the blending mode to color, and let's change color. Let's go for a nice red there, because I do remember that was the actual color of the fellow's turban. So I'm just going to use the square brackets to make it a little bit bigger, and then we can just fill in here. Now it's looking quite vibrant, and in fact the colors here in Rajasthan were pretty vibrant, but we also want to replicate the effect. Remember to zoom in when you're doing intricate areas so that you can be a little bit more accurate with your colouring. Now I quite like the way that when it slightly goes over the edge, as you can see here, that you're just getting that kind of nice painterly effect. The colours are almost mixing with each other as inks would have done in the old days. Okay, so again, I'm possibly being a little bit crude here for the sake of speed. Okay, let's just zoom out, and again over to the opacity slider here, and we just bring that down, let's say to about 35% there. Looks pretty good. And then let's create another layer, new, over to layer. In fact, we can change the blending mode to color here too. Let's press OK there, and let's say select a bit of green. Let's come down a bit for some of the foliage, and I see I'm just sort of dabbing it on fairly crudely here, and let's just put a couple of splodges sort of there, and bring the opacity right down again, so it's just got a little bit of colour there. And let's create another new layer, blending mode to colour, click OK. Let's go for a sort of a more yellowy sort of colour, maybe for the path. And you can see what we're doing here is just sort of working up these colours, so that it's looking sort of a bit more colourful. And there we go. And you can get the general idea here of what we're doing. For the sake of this demonstration, I'll just move forward to the one that I have already completed here, and you can see that we have a whole ton of layers that we've used to create. So we can turn them on and off, and you can see we can go back and just edit them as well. And it's a great way to just change. You'll notice that there's different opacities. See, this one is 20%, this one's 34%. That's I think just the little bit of gum area there in his teeth. So every layer can have a different opacity, which is why it's good to work with multiple layers. And when you've finished, make sure you save a version with the layers as a PSD file or a TIFF file, so that you can go back and work on it retrospectively, and also to do a flattened version so that you can save it as a JPEG and email it out to your friends. Thank you.